Yerushalayim, which is a very strong kollel in Sanhedrin Murchevet. He's also the Rosh kollel of a network of kollelim that's called Linas HaTzedek, focusing on halachos ve'adam l'chaveiro and other halachos that are not generally studied. He's a major posek. We often hear his psakim here in the yeshiva. He was a major partner of Rav Noach running the yeshiva, primarily in terms of the smicha program. He was the head of our smicha program for many a year, and also muchly involved in heading the learning program of the yeshiva. So let's hear Rav Yitzchak.
Tells us that you're not supposed to keep a Hesped after 12 months following the deceased passing. Crying too much is almost as if you're questioning divine providence, Hashem's decisions. Hesped getting together to lament, that's out of place. It's more getting together to relive, not to speak of what's missing, but to make sure that there's something left. Yaakov Avinu Lomes, we're told, the patriarch Jacob, he never died. The verse, the pasuk, does not use the word death. How do we know that? And the Gemara infers it from the fact that in the verse we find mention of Yaakov and his children next to each other. And it says, Mazaro b'chaim, afu b'chaim, his children are alive, so he's alive. Referring to the Jewish nation. So long as there is a Jewish nation, which of course will be forever, Yaakov Avinu was alive. Rav Noach, the person Hashem made his decision. And it's wrong for us to keep crying. Rav Noach, the dream. Rav Noach, who demanded of all of us that's low mace, that never departed. And today, it's appropriate and perhaps an obligation to try to re-ask ourselves, what was it that he demanded of us? What is it that he demands of us? What is it about all of us that makes him still alive? Of Yaakov Avinu, we find something very peculiar. Something of an obsession. When when he's first told of Yosef's alleged death. So he cries, refuses to be consoled, and he says, Ered el beni, avel sha'olah. I will go down because of this. I will go down in mourning. The word sha'ol usually is referring to death. Rashi brings the Medrash, and the Medrash says sha'ol is referring to Gehenna. Yaakov Avinu is going to go to Gehenna. Yaakov Avinu is going to burn. Why? He was given a sign. The sign was that the only way he was not going to see Gehenna is if all of his children remain alive in his lifetime. And we find this repeated. We find this repeated. This is the theme when the brothers meet up with Yosef in Egypt. Before knowing who he is, he requests that they bring Binyamin. They go home, they tell Yaakov, same story. What's going to happen to Binyamin? And what's going to be with me? And then when Yehuda has to argue it out with Yosef, same thing. You want to keep Binyamin, you know what's going to happen to her father. What is this obsession? Besides, Yaakov Avinu, the pillar of truth. Were it not for Yaakov, we would never have understood the truth of Hashem. In our davening, we say Elokei Yaakov, which means the Hashem, whom we only understand through Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Each one gave us another glimpse, another frame of reference for understanding what Hashem is about. Before Avraham Avinu, the world was filled with tyranny. Could anyone understand a God that created the world because he's all-giving? Avraham Avinu was the one that brought to the world that concept of chesed, loving kindness. His fanaticism for loving kindness allowed mankind to understand an all-loving God. Yitzchak's gevura, being willing to give up his very self as a sacrifice. People, selfish, looking for what's practical, giving one's whole self up for an ideal. That aspect of the reality of the Creator could never have been understood before Yitzchak. And then came truth itself. Yaakov Avinu, Ish Tam Yoshev Oholim, totally immersed in Torah study. The truth seeker, the man of integrity who works for Lavan, who knew nothing other than to swindle. And we have a description of how Yaakov made every sacrifice, not to compromise his integrity. With that, he revealed the concept of truth to the world, without which no one could have understood who Hashem is. So we refer to Hashem as Hashem. So this Yaakov Avinu has this sign he was given. That unless when he comes to heaven, all of his children are on earth, he's going to see the Gehenna. And he's obsessed with this. What sense does that make? Of all the wonderful things he did, of all his greatness, it's all worthless. All worthless, although he's got them all there. What is this all about? I never understood this until I got to know Rav Noach. This wasn't some kind of superstitious sign. This is a matter of a mission. Yaakov Avinu understood he was put into this world to build the Jewish nation. The Jewish nation in its entirety. 12 tribes doesn't just mean a big family, lots of kids. 12 tribes means 12 different kinds of people. 12 different pillars of the Jewish nation. The portions of the land were divided among the 12 tribes. Each one had an appropriate portion to their personality, to what's called the Shorish HaNeshama, what their souls were made of, what they were supposed to do in this world. Yaakov Avinu understood. He understood it, he felt it, he lived it. He was put into this world to build the Jewish nation. And unless he was successful at seeing to it that the Jewish nation would be built, would survive, would flourish in its entirety as 12 tribes, he will have failed. Because that's what he's here for. We're told, it is not upon you to complete the job. No individual has that responsibility. This was an exception. This was an exception. Yaakov Avinu knew his whole existence was for the sake of bringing to humanity, the Jewish nation, every aspect of the Jewish nation, every tribe. Without that, he will not have fulfilled his mission. As great as he may be, he will not have fulfilled his mission. Over the course of Jewish history, several individuals have felt that they had a clear understanding of what their mission was, and anything less than success would be considered failure. Rav Noach was one such person. Rav Noach knew what he was created for. His mind, his heart. His mind, the genius of the human being. Perhaps someone else would have used it otherwise. He was brilliant. He could solve a math problem in seconds. He was brilliant, endlessly creative. His mind, why did Hashem put that into the world? That wasn't his only question. Why was he put into the world in the generation he was born in? And why was he born in the part of the world that he was? He looked around and asked himself, and concluded without any question that when Jewry was dwindling, assimilation was growing, and everyone had given up. It was clear Hashem had given him every gift that was necessary to start turning things around. He created something from nothing. When he began, for years, Rav Noach the dreamer was a practical joke. But he had the last laugh. He created a movement, and as he always used to say, till it got to the point that everyone told him he didn't know what he was doing because they could do kiruv better than him. Outreach is a way of life. He made it happen. But that wasn't it. He took it further. He felt that it was his obligation not just to bring the concept of kiruv into the world. It was his obligation to wake up Jewry that was still adhering to Torah mitzvahs, and let them understand that they too had that mission. And he didn't stop at that. He believed it was his responsibility to change the face of the entire Jewish nation. time and again. Rav Noach referred to himself as a failure because Mashiach didn't come in his days. Our only answer is Mahu B'chaim Avzaro B'chaim. He's still alive. He's still here. I think that if we try to understand Rav Noach, we have to get both messages. One, that we cannot be complacent about the state of Jewry. It's only gotten worse. But no less that we get the message where every individual Jew has to ask himself, what is my mission? What is it that I, considering everything Hashem put into me, all of what Hashem invested, every one of us, there's no such thing as a Jew who doesn't have unique talents. There is no such thing. Everyone's going to ask himself, why did Hashem make me the way I am? Put me where he put me. Now, today, what is my mission? What was I put here for? The Jewish people will look a lot different if we all think that way. Now, Rav Noach was not one to reminisce. He was not into telling stories just for the sake of telling stories. That wasn't him. Everything was, all right, what does it mean? What does it mean? What is it telling me? But it's so difficult not to remember the two opposite sides to his personality. He was all love. He loved every Jew. He was fascinated by every Jew. Anyone new that walked in, he didn't just preach to. He wanted to get to know him. He loved every Jew. Felt for everyone. He loved every Jew, including those who double-crossed him. There were no exceptions. He loved Jews. And he so much understood the human experience and so eloquently described it and he hit upon it. In those days, his descriptions of the Marlboro Man and getting off the roller coaster. He so much captured the human experience. He was so human, loved life so much, and at the same time, just could not tolerate, could not accept, could not even understand human weakness. There was no such thing. What do you mean I can't? What do you mean I can't? Do you believe in God? Without him, we can't do anything. With him, he can do anything. Human weakness, he had zero tolerance for. Every one of us was screamed at regularly. Challenged our Yerushalayim. Every accomplishment, yeah, fine, drop in a bucket. Just couldn't accept human limitation. Look at the way he lived. Limitations were not, they're not part of his vocabulary. He was so understanding and so loving and so harsh. And the answer is that that was so much what his love was really about. He loved every one of us. He loved every Jew because he saw endless potential. And it just ate him up when he saw the Jewish genius sitting and wasting away, doing little stuff and feeling good about it. It was because he loved that he was so demanding. It's another aspect of Rav Noach that we cannot allow to die, that has to live forever. We have to love. We have to love every Jew. We have to cry for every Jew. We have to cry for every Jew who doesn't know why he wakes up in the morning. We have to cry for every Jew that doesn't understand the meaning of life, and cry even more for those that don't understand that there is meaning to life. We have to cry and care and understand that the self-hating Jew is really one of us. And with enough love, we can turn him around and enlist him in the battle against assimilation. Every Jew's got greatness, and there's nothing better for the Jew than using that greatness in service of Klal Yisrael. It is our obligation not to remember Noach, to keep him alive. Every one of us that was touched by him, and everyone who was touched by anyone else who was touched by him. It is our sacred obligation to keep him alive. And keeping him alive means to be mad of ourselves. That we use every bit of energy and talent that Hashem invested in us to make a difference to the Jewish people. We can't let him down. We can't let him think he's a failure. It's up to us to see to it that Rav Noach lives on, and Rav Noach will be successful at bringing the Mashiach speedily in our days. He brought these ideas to the world. It's up to us to make sure they continue and they grow. I want to end with something that I guess Rav Noach himself would tell me off for saying, but would probably insist that it be said anyway. One of the things he used to say is that where everyone speaks in the name of great Jewish leaders of yesteryear, oh, if the Chafetz Chaim were alive, this is what he would do. And Rav Noach felt that all of those who speak in their name missed it totally. If you would know what the Chafetz Chaim would have done today, then you would be the Chafetz Chaim. I want to dare speak in the name of Rav Noach. The world of Kiruv has developed a new theme. The theme is Kiruv is on its way out. The outreach organizations, the yeshivas, they're empty. The amount of students that are willing to come, take a year off and study in Israel, in a yeshiva, oh, it's way down. It's so much more difficult to get people to come to a class, come to a program. They'll come for the food. They won't come back for the class. People say cure is on its way out. There were articles on the subject. That seems to be the theme of every get-together. All these outreach professionals, a word that Rav Noach couldn't take. Before Rav Noach, they said it couldn't be done. And when he said he was going to do it, they said it couldn't be done. There's no question that if Rav Noach were invited to any of these get-togethers, oh, would he let them have it? Cure is not on its way out. We're asleep. We're asleep. The same way before Rav Noach, there was no methodology. Now, we're trying to use the old methodology for a different generation. And when it doesn't work, we say Kiruv is dying. There's no question Rav Noach would say, go break your heads. Find what speaks to today's young men and women. See how you can reach them. There's nothing that's gone more wrong with them. We're asleep. We're not thinking. Where's our creativity? Does it make a difference? Or as he would say in simple terms, where's our Yirah Shamayim? If we are to keep Rav Noach alive, it is the obligation of anyone that was touched by him, anyone that understands something of what it means to care for the fate of the Jewish nation. We've got to rack our brains. We've got to find what it takes to reach today's Jew. Yeah, the one fidgeting with his iPhone and won't look at you. How do you get him to study? How do you get him to find Hashem? How do you get him to make life changes? It is our obligation to keep Rav Noach alive and find the answers. We're all in this together. All of Rav Noach's Talmidim worldwide, their students, all of you, everyone's got to rack his brains. We've got to find the answer. Rav Noach lo meis. Rav Noach never died so long as we're not asleep. Let's not talk about his memory. Let's talk about Rav Noach. Let's talk about his mission, his dream, his life. Because he's alive. Mazaro b'chaim, afhu b'chaim. We can stop at nothing. And Rav Noach is up there making sure that Hashem will give us that siyata d'shmaya, the divine inspiration, the divine push to make it happen. And yes, the Jewish nation will be saved. Mashiach will come. And when we turn around, the scenery will be a lot different. We should all live with the gift of Rav Noach. Grow with it. Keep it alive. For the sake of Klal Yisrael. For the sake of every one of us as well.